We received correspondence from the chief engineer that had 5 points he wanted to address before we went further. The first one is consumptive use. That's the amount of water we can pull out of the ground, the amount of water that's authorized. We have a little over 8,000 acre feet of water rights at the ranch. When you're converting from irrigation to municipal, you don't get 100% consumptive use, because when you irrigate, some of that water goes back into the aquifer. And so what we're talking about now is the difference between our current water rights and what the water rights would be after conversion. Essentially what we're saying is, DWR, we don't have an issue with your number. Our number is different, but the difference is not enough to argue over right now. So it's a long lawyerly way of saying that. We did point out there was an error in their spreadsheet, which might modify their number, but we didn't change our stipulation that we acknowledge your number. It's not ours, but we aren't going to fight it right now. The issue number 2, justification for proposed municipal use, proposed amount, and project phasing. Typically, DWR uses a 20-year planning horizon when developing a new source of water. They're assuming that the entity developing the new source of water is able to do it in a scalable manner. You develop a source, you look at it for 20 years, you go develop another source. As our water attorney likes to say, Hayes is a great location because we're in the middle of all kinds of places that have good water. You go 100 miles in every direction, there's good water, except for us. So this is a 50 to 75 to longer year solution, and we've asked DWR to think outside of their 20-year boundary, to look at a 50-year plan. We've brought this up because of A, the amount of money we have to invest in the project, B, the fact that we have to get financing for the project, and what we have essentially said to DWR is we can't afford to spend $76 million on a 20-year solution. We're not going to get financing for a $76 million project on a 20-year solution. We need to know that if that water is there as we grow as a community for the entirety of the project. So DWR asked us to put together some methodology. Our attorneys and engineers did that, and we've put it back in their court to say, here's our population projections, here's our methodology, this is what we're looking at. And so we'll just wait to hear back from them. The other thing is flexibility in locating points of diversion. Right now there's 40-some different spots on the ranch where we pull water out of the ground. We're looking to combine that into 12 municipal wells. We didn't want to spend over $250,000 going and drilling samples all over the ranch to find the exact right spots. That being said, the way the regulations typically work is once you identify a point on a map and submit that for that point of diversion, you get 300 feet radius to move it. We've asked for a little bit of flexibility on that by saying we drew a box inside of the ranch. And the reason they have that 300-foot point is because they don't want you encroaching on your neighbors and saying, I'm going to pull it out over here and then go right up to your property boundary and pull the water out here. So there's a 300-foot point of diversion. What we have said is we're going to draw a box around the inside of the ranch. So we're not even close to our neighbors. We would like flexibility outside of the 300-foot within that box. We're still staying well within our boundaries. We're not encroaching on anybody. DWR come back and said we're a little bit leery of that. And our back in this letter is saying we really don't want to spend $200,000 and delay the project 6 months to do this. We would like that flexibility. It's not hard and fast written in statutes. It's just a regulation they have, a rule of thumb they deal with. And so we'll have to wait and see what their answer is on that. Long-term sustainability. DWR is interested in what they determine as safe yield. We have an authorized rate we can pull out of the ranch, but they're looking at the safe yield. What's the sustainable yield on a year after year after year basis? Burns and McDonnell had an initial safe yield estimate. We've been working on a pretty intensive groundwater model, looking at different runs of rainfalls and runoff and what we pulled out. And what DWR said is we would like to be able to review that, participate. Our response is we have no problem with that. However, safe yield shouldn't be part of this process. It's something that's going to be very important for us as we develop it as a source, but with regard to this legal process, safe yield isn't mentioned in the statutes anywhere in either transfer or change applications. So while you have an interest in that, it shouldn't have any bearing in this process. This is what our attorney is saying back to them. And then the last issue, number 5, DWR has discussed the possibility of having a basin stakeholder group meeting once we've got the change application stuff hammered out, meaning in the Arkansas River Basin, having a public forum essentially for stakeholders to offer their input on the proposed plan. Once we get the details worked out, our response is, it's your show. If you want to have a meeting, fine. You're running the show, we're not, so it's your show, have the meeting. So that's the response. This is in response to the last letter we got from DWR in April that resulted in a meeting from late March. We're expecting probably a pretty quick turnaround because we're getting with smaller and smaller issues here. So I'm hoping to have communication back from DWR within a month, and I'll give you another update when we get that.